All right, so here we are in Logic Pro with a test oscillator on an audio channel. Now, why are we doing that? Because we want to now take what we've learned from our internet website for our insights, and we want to look at these modes and we want to find these signals, right? So because I'm running HS5s, the Yamaha HS5s here, they're not going to get anything down at 40, right? It's just going to be nothing. Like, you're not going to hear much. So we're going to start like at this, like around this this 73 or even 80, right? Like, so let's try 80 hertz and start at that 80 hertz zone. And what we want to do now in the room to find out where it's building up in the room is we want to ring out 80 hertz in the room through the speakers. And then we want to walk around the room with a cell phone SPL meter, which you can get in an app. You just type in your app store or Android store, just search for SPL meter. That's it, SPL meter. And you should be able to get an app that'll use your microphone. But the first thing I want to show you, and what this module is dedicated to, is to using your DAW to shoot a test tone through your speakers into the room, and to be able to walk around the room and hear where the frequencies are building up. Because as you tune your ear to those frequencies, you'll also understand whether you're hearing them more or less in your listening position, which is a huge part of mixing and mastering and producing even, right? Like, you're choosing your kick drums, you're choosing your snare drums, you're choosing your 808s, your bass drum, or your bass, your sub basses, all depending on what you hear in your listening position. You have to trust that listening position is exactly where you're hearing all these frequencies appropriately, because if you're not, you're choosing the wrong sounds. Like, simply put, you're going to be a worse producer. You're not going to be very good at sound design. You're not going to be good at mixing or mastering, and none of your shit is really going to translate. And that's what this video module is about. It's about translation. You guys got to sit in your listening position very, very confident that what you're hearing here is exactly what's going to go out into the world. Okay? So that's the importance of this. Now, in any DAW, you should be able to do this. This is a test oscillator. It's going to have a sine sweep. You're going to use a sine wave, and we're just going to sweep through frequencies. Remember, we're going to start at 80. We're going to shoot 80 hertz into the room, which I'm not going to do with this microphone on. But what we're going to do is we're going to ring this out in the room and turn up the volume on the speakers to where the sound is filling up the room, okay? And as you do that, you're going to walk around the room and you're going to see where the frequency comes in and out. And that's what modal ringing is. It means that you have certain areas and zones where you have high amplitude of that frequency, and then you have other zones where you have very low amplitude of that frequency. So this is a big myth I want to bust here when you're tuning a room and you're using EQ, right? Here's the interesting part about using SonarWorks or any tuning software, right? Is that you're going, oh, I'm just going to hit this thing, hit this button, and let SonarWorks tune my room, right? But that's the issue, is that you're tuning your room with a modal ring that may be really, really down in your listening position, or may be really up just like a few feet behind you, right? So, or even a few inches behind you. So as you're taking away or EQing out that thing, you're also boosting it, or, you know, you're changing the amplitude somewhere else. So if it's already gone in one spot and you start to take out more of it, then you're really not going to hear that in that spot. And you better hope that that's not your listening position, right? And that's what the SonarWorks and what those things are trying to do, is they're trying to make the listening position more flat and even. But your best defense first to maximize those softwares is to tune the acoustics first, so that you're not trying to EQ out a huge modal ring in the room that you just can't tune out, right? Like, you're going to get a bunch of other problems. You're going to get problems with phasing and distortion, and, you know, the notes not playing right and things just sounding funky, right? You can have a lot of issues with trying to tune out modal ringing with EQ. Actually, a lot of acousticians say that it's not even possible, okay? So what we're going to do now is we're just going to ring that room out. You can do this in Pro Tools. You can do it in Ableton Live, FL Studio. I don't know if you can do it in FL Studio. You know, like, it's not like super professional for the audio world. It's more like beat maker software, but I'm pretty sure you can do it in basically any other DAW. So test oscillate. You're going to look back at your graph here. You're going to find a frequency you want to focus on. For example, I'm going to focus on 80 hertz. I'm going to bring up this sine wave. I'm going to turn my monitor control up, and I'm going to let that just ring in this room. And I'm going to let you hear that. I'm going to mute my microphone and let you hear that frequency through the computer, but you're not going to hear it how I hear it in the room. I'm going to hear it like firing off, and I'm just going to walk around and I'm going to tell you where I hear it and where I don't hear it. I'll raise my hand and I'll say like, this is really high. And then when I can't hear it, I'll just put my hand down like, yo, it's like, it's dead. All right, so let's go. All right, so that frequency is like ringing like crazy, just like I'd say 2 feet back, right? It's just insanely loud. And then as I get closer to the speakers, it actually starts to disappear, which is really funny. So the amplitude is like going down, right? And then as I go back to the back of the room, it's almost just not even there, right? So let's look at the graph here and see what it says, where that's building up and where to trap that. Yeah, so the front, back wall, and then the middle of the room. So the middle of the room is where I'm really hearing it resonate. And I'm sure that the front wall is probably somewhere where I'm really hearing it resonate as well. So that's where we want to put heavy bass trapping, on the back wall and on the front wall. Okay, and that's pretty typical in most studios. But a lot of studios get this wrong and they just put broadband, like mid-frequency absorbers on the front and back walls. The back walls always, I find in a room this size, typically, they need big bass traps. So you need to be trapping up as much bass as possible in that back room, back wall and that front wall, okay? And that'll be the front corners, that'll be the back wall, and we'll try to hit the ceiling, corner, wall to ceiling, like here. Yeah, so we'll hit like here, right? So this 83 hertz, that's gonna be the ceiling back there where the corners meet the wall from the ceiling, and the front ceiling here. So pretty typical frequency buildup, but that's just really how you do it analog, right? And I want you guys to really understand the concepts behind this before you just go put panels everywhere and then shoot it with SonarWorks and you're good, bro. Like, it's just simply not the way it works. And another thing about this is that I'm showing you guys this stuff so you can understand what's going on. But as we get into the software, the Fuzz Measure Pros and the shooting and the SonarWorks and all that, the biggest thing, and probably 70% of tuning a room, is finding where the speakers sing the best in the room, where you get the best frequency response in the room by just placing your speakers, right? So it's like when you blow on a bottle, like what I was been using as a reference, you know, you're like, ooh, right? You can fill it up with more water, you can move down the water, and you can get different tones and frequencies, right? That's kind of what you're doing with your speaker. You're putting it in different spots. So you're gonna get different resonance and you're gonna get different frequency response curves in your listening position. So moving the speakers around is going to be a massive part of getting your room to sound really great. So we'll go through that as well as we get into shooting the room, okay? So hopefully this made sense. Go make a test tone, go shoot those tones through your room, right? And start to figure out where they're building up and maybe even mark those spots, right? You can also go around the room with an SPL meter, which, like I said, you can just get from the App Store, right? And then you can go around and you can see where the needle jumps, the SPL jumps really high, and then move around and you'll see where it disappears. So when you see it at its highest, you want to mark that spot and say, that's where I need a panel. You might even write in pencil, 80 hertz, right? So just mark all those spots, figure it out, and let's get into the next module. Let's talk about shooting the room and actually seeing the curve of your room. And speaker placement.